We will be continuing with the topics on family. Those are the topics. So, even while you are preparing, the amount of time that you spend on these topics has to be very less when compared to the rest of the ones. One, because it is rather easy to remember the definitions, etc. And then the basic things that you will have to, whatever pictures or whatever examples. And above all, the amount of marks that you would be getting also would be much less when compared to the other ones. Nevertheless, we don't want you to lose those ones and twos. And hence you should be knowing what exactly to be written in each of them. That is also the reason why a lot of dictations are also not there in these topics. Many of the ones either typed in your book or I would be sharing. Don't develop an antagonism that see, madam did not deal with them for a long time. Don't have that orientation. We will have to weigh the importance of the areas, and then based on that we should have to plan. And see, I totally admire and I totally understand that we are all matured people. Small, simple English is understandable. And hence the concepts which do not require a major explanation, I don't think I should be spending a good amount of time. There were times when I wouldn't even touch these topics in the class. I would actually give the handout. But after I got married and I started feeling the pain from the other side, then I thought, okay, I should be having some kind of an outlet. So today morning also my husband was saying, how much time you are spending on them? I said, I'm spending my lifetime. So I am actually giving a couple of classes to them on these topics. He was, a long time back he was my student. So now when I'm teaching something, he tells me, this you did not teach us, this you did not teach us. You are being partial. उसी बैच में अगर एक आध साल में डिफरेंस होता तो ठीक है आप 10 साल बाद बोल रहे हो तो it looks slightly 10 नहीं but still kind of. Parallelly you keep looking into your document. We will keep on showing you things. Sir, these are the basic criteria based on which family is categorized. Families are studied. For each of them, we will try to see one or two categories, and then if possible, so the question can be typological study of family. This debate has always been there in the discipline whether family or marriage is a universal institution. With the kind of studies that were held by people like Jane Goodall, it is established clearly that the nearest human ancestors or the people who share the common ancestry, they already have very well established family structures where more or less hereditary rules are there of grooming the offspring. So it is not simply the humans that teach culture and the ways of life. They also do teach the things. So from various examples from basic zoology and from physical anthropological studies by people like her, It is now broadly accepted that the society is not unique to humans. So that's the reason why, pick up the books of anthropology, many times we find these words, the society of the chimps or society of the gorillas. Don't think that humans alone have societies. By society we mean there are individuals and there are interlinkages, interconnections between them. And how one is adjusting oneself to suit the rules of that community. So when they are living in groups with all these kinds of hereditary relationships, intergenerational relationships, there we can see several commonalities. How you express your grief or anger and other kinds of emotions, and how the fights are for authority, a male chimpanzee and the other male fellow fighting. And of course there would be species such as orangutan. You can, by a single look you can understand that he is the chief of that particular community. The kind of white patch that he gets on his back, and then sometimes white beard, this is indicative of this comes as a surprise to the researchers. How is it that biology is knowing that he is a political head? For a researcher it is comfortable. You can actually identify him from a distance. Those studies are still to conclude on how is it possible that something that is on a social side is getting reflected on the physical side. See, had it been a community such as a Polynesian society, people would paint their bodies and do all kinds of stuff to exhibit the authority and position. There they are not physically doing, but then so the nature itself is communicating to the rest of the world, especially to the females in that community, that see, I am the most eligible fellow. So remember this confirmation that families are generally accepted to be universal, not simply among the humans but across the species, across the species. But when it comes to marriage, there has been a less confirmation about it. Whether the institution of marriage is existing, whether it is the universally existing or not, there is no unanimity on that. What Kathleen Gough says is maybe the kind of rituals that are associated with that particular stage of life, with that particular event, the rituals may be different. But then at one point of time you decide that, see, let us cohabit and let us have the rights restricted towards each other. When such kind of an agreement comes and you are in the process of establishing the family, though there are no formal rituals of the so-called marriage, maybe technically the couple is into marital relationship. All the more so when the legal processes are on, where you talk about rights of inheritance, etc., incorporating the individuals who are not formally married but cohabiting for a long time. When such kind of decisions, such kind of mechanisms are coming up in our own society, it means that there can be a family without a formal marriage. Am I clear to you? So when it comes to the human family, can you recall the definition you have written yesterday? The definition of family, Peter Murdoch. Somebody read out Murdoch's definition.
A social group characterized by common residence, economic cooperation and reproduction. It includes both
Common residence,
economic cooperation and reproduction. It includes both sexes, at least two of whom maintain a socially approved sexual relationship and one or more children own or adopt them.
the very first criteria the definition gives is a common residence. If you're not residing together, there is a puzzle whether it's a family or not. That's where, several sociologists had this opinion when joint family seems to be. So we have almost concluded in most of the books saying that joint family has had its last day, and what we are having today is only the remnant of it, and then what we are having is a nuclear family. But then the people, the old timers who say that no, nuclear joint family is still surviving, they say that it is still surviving with a change in the form. See, previously everybody was having the possibility of staying together. Most of the time we define family based on the nuclear family alone, but when it comes to the joint family, we see that it is the cross-generational cohabiting group. So it is something that is based on patrilocality, patriarchy, and patrilineality. Having these three principles put together, and across the generations, the couple along with their children, their families, and then maybe perhaps their brothers and brothers' children, their families, everybody in a massive way staying together in a big household. But here there are certain things that people keep on talking about. When we say joint family, there is a jointedness. This has to be there everywhere. Maybe jointedness in terms of purse, in terms of the emotions that you share. At the end of the day, common purse indicates a key thing for the jointedness. So it is like living under the same roof with a common purse. When I am saying common purse, I actually also mean common kitchen. You must have seen some of the families in urban areas. See, instead of having one single kitchen, after when the group becomes so very unwieldy, you may try to have several nuclear families, but living under the same roof, they would be maintaining their own kitchen, they would be having their own purse. This is not a joint family. But the protagonists of this institution, they say that the jointedness is still there. Just because you are there on the same foundation in the building, it doesn't mean that you are having the same roof and same purse. Technically, the institution on most of the counts has actually had its last day. What we have today is maybe some kind of remnants of the past in the joint family system, and most of us living in the nuclear families. But then this is always a question. If at all the couple, because of the employment, nature of employment, etc., you are posted somewhere, she is posted somewhere, you have two different households, and then you have, everything is separate actually. Maybe you are meeting on the weekends, ek hafta aap aa gaye, ek hafta wo aa gaye, and then kind of, these we call weekend marriages, they weaken your relationship. They are already weakened actually. It's not simply that. Maybe from within the nuclear family, there are emerging variants there. This is always a puzzle. I think in most of the households that's what is happening. People have clear demarcations. This is my money, this is your money. And this is my saving, this is your saving. It looks all the more funny when husband or wife takes a loan from the other partner. अब बाहर से आप लोन लाए तो अलग बात है, आप घर ही में ले रहे हो. See, had it been saying your retired father is there, you need some money, your father is supporting you, maybe that we can to some extent say that okay, you have borrowed from your father and you are giving back to him. ये फिर भी ठीक रहा. And what is left? I think this also might be happening at some places. I am giving this example because when I was coming to the office, one of my cousins was actually giving me a call. He wanted to take a housing loan, etc. Then he was saying, "Kuch support karo" and all that. Then I was asking, "What happened? Tumhari biwi ka to job hai?" I think. Then he says, "Uska alag se loan chal raha hai, uska alag se kuch property ban raha hai." And then he says, "No, but anyway, I will try to take a loan from her." Then I was asking, "What is the interest he charges from you?" He said that "Abhi tak to kuch manga nahi." So there is a possibility there. So I was telling him, if it is less than say 8%, aap unse le lo. If it is more than 8%, you go with a bank that is much better. Then he took it very seriously when I was saying, so conversation seriously chal raha tha. Then he said, yeah, you are right, I will do that. I will just find out with her what is the ye to hadi ho gayi. So basically you are, I don't know what the relationship there is. Just because there is some kind of a social bonding that was established. And a definition of marriage takes a beating there. A definition of a family takes a beating there. On what lines you should be defining the kind of relationship that they must be having. Forget about marriage being a sacrament, a sacred relationship. Gone are the days, no? At least now on a social platform, keeping aside the sacredness, how else one can actually define? Anyways, so yahan par tha, there are a few things that Peter Murdoch was mentioning. One is the common residence, and then economic cooperation, and at least couple of the adult members having a sexual relation, and there are children, whether adopted or the original children who are actually the part of the family. So keeping that in mind, we will go ahead. These are the two very significant ones. When I'm saying authority-wise, they can be. Yes. Yes.
But the same for family, they are also animals.
Yes.
That is not unique to only humans.
Yes. Yes. Marriage may be unique, or marriage is not even universal in the humans.
In animals, there is no.
You might be saying that, see, with more than one individual they are cohabiting. Is it that way?
So how can we tell?
No. Suppose I am taking her own example. Suppose I am taking Jane Goodall's example alone. अभी इतना आप जेरोक्स कॉपी तो नहीं मिलेगा, but then some of the human family variants you can see in them also. This is our understanding in the mainstream Indian society, that there should be one only for each. But it is also not there in all the societies. You have many for one. So when you say that there are many for one, a typical chimpanzee society exhibits that. There could be one chief fellow who might be able to attract more number of females. So थोड़ा सा broad हो जाओ. I hope the terms are clear, patriarchy and matriarchy. I have given some names that these are the people who tried to study authority rules based on evolution. You remember Bachofen's theory when mother right society and father right society kind of things he mentions, which must have come first. He says that it was the beginning, the father right society, then comes the mother right society, then comes the patriarchy. So all these people, they were actually talking about the evolution of authority systems. For that matter, Taylor or Morgan, for them, matriarchy must have been the earlier one to patriarchy. We have mentioned this when we were talking about the concept of coed. So we said there that in patriarchy, in matriarchy, coed had to be there. But when the societies moved on to become patri, along with some of the characteristics, coed also got incorporated in the next stages of human culture. But then we see that most of the mainstream society are, sir, in certain cases we need pictures, but here you simply explain that majority of the mainstream societies are patriarchal. Societies based on Christianity, Islam, or Hinduism, etc. There is something else here. The second one, lineage-based families. So you have different kinds of lineages which we are going to see today in the topic of kinship. There can be matrilineage-based families. There can be patrilineage-based families. So all these lineage-based things we would be coming across in the topic called descent. So what is happening here is, in the first case, we are categorizing families based on who is at the helm of affairs. In the second one, how is it that you are linked to your ancestral generations? Sometimes, there is a clear-cut idea, especially in the unilinear groups. You know very clearly that you will have to trace your ancestry through maternal line only or through paternal line only. Some people are confused. They might follow both of them at the same time. Or, they might follow one in the one generation, the other in the other generation. It is not simply an indication of confusion. It may be the situation that is responsible. We are going to see several other things, like, what is the meaning of a parallel descent, etc. That we will take some more time to. When it comes to structure-based categorization of family, primarily we have two. One is nuclear family, the other one is the joint family. There is something else. We call it extended family. So in today's class, we should be taking a small note on this particular thing. Family, household, and domestic group. One of the very confusing concept there. Sometimes even if people have written books, they get confused between the topics. So I wanted to give in 2 or 3 lines each on them. This is definitely a teasing question by the examiner if he chooses to ask this, and it will not be for more than 10 marks. Of course, we are also looking for in the upcoming exams 7.5 marks questions, which did not come so far. If at all such a marking starts, this is a potential question there. So by 2018, if UPSC graduates to asking 7.5 marks questions, I hope you will be ready with it. Nuclear family is very clear. We'll draw some pictures. I think in your booklet also on page 37, we have those. Hum do, hamare do. This is a primary social group. Everything else, all the kinds of relationships are actually added to this. This is the primary one. So whatever individuals are there, they are all the primary kins. When you say father, mother, husband, wife, son, daughter, sister, brother, these are all the primary kinship terms and primary kinship relations. This is a primary socializing group. There can be a variant in the primary socializing group. So joint family technically generally eldest brother has more number of children. I love when I do that. Some cut or the other should be there so that you add spice to life. This is a joint family. Parents, their children, their families, unmarried sons and daughters, and occasionally widows, their children, all this, that's a huge one. Remember, this is not a mirror image of that. There is a we-centeredness here, there is a me-centeredness here. The levels of accommodation are very, very less in the nuclear family. I said to you earlier also that here individuals are contributing based on their capacity and getting a return based on their necessity. So the first fellow might not be earning so much, because you have seen so many stories. The first fellow makes all the sacrifices along with the father. both of them, he left his school so that he can get the others education. So when this had happened, he took the entire load. And so what happens is, these later fellows might be earning much more than what this fellow is earning. But whatever you earn, hand over to him. And because he has more number of children, he should have a bigger share when compared to the other fellows. And that's where the heartburn starts. And when suddenly this happens, this is a burning thing. And then she puts all her efforts so that nuclear families can sustain by themselves, but joint families, suppose it gets shattered, each of them cannot sustain in the same way. So it is not like, it's not like a building blocks. You are trying to add them and create something. It's not that way. Once you are disturbing something, the whole thing collapses. That is the reason why it is generally said, female education, urbanization are responsible for the demise of joint family. We still have to talk about those things. There is something else, extended family. This is a different one. This is one kind of an extended family, meaning extension to any kind of extension to the nuclear family. So many of our households have this, grandfather, grandmother living with us. This is one kind of an extended family. Or it can be this is another kind of an extended family. You are still studying, so your brother thought that, okay, you stay with me so that you can take care of them, drop them school and get the grocery and pay the bills, and I'll pay you your bill. Any kind of extension. It can also be occasionally for the urban living, because it's too very expensive to get the houses on rent. So brothers, nuclear family, sisters, nuclear family staying together. But they are not same as the joint families. They are only extensions. Wherever necessary, they are contributing, cooperating. Maybe each of them would be contributing the expenditure, and then whenever they want, conveniently, they can live by themselves. No major hassles whatsoever. In fact, this is a right occasion to deal with the concept of domestic group, etc. But then let me finish off the rest of the ones then. So is it clear now? Nuclear is a self-sustaining one, independent one. Joint families, so many nuclear families are there, but they are not same as the nuclear family existing all by itself. There is something called jointedness which is visible in every walk of the social life. When it comes to extended family, for some basic purpose, they might be extending above the nuclear family. That may be in terms of across generation or within the generation extension. So they have their own benefits. We'll look at the other ones. There is something called locality. Based on locality, I thought here itself I'll give some basic data, though your syllabus not specifically mentions this. Various locality rules or residential rules. Based on the locality, the type of family can be defined. Locality rules are nothing but the rules that indicates the pattern of residence of the newly wedded couple. where you are going to stay after marriage. In most of the cases we see today, it is a neo-local residence. In most of the cases, it is a neo-local residence. But there are the other variants also. Can I go? We'll see some of the examples there. Ember gives these basic statistics. Among the societies that he had surveyed, patri locality is prevalent in more than 67% of societies. Neo-locality is picking up. He is mentioning it in terms of percentage of the societies. He is not talking in terms of number of families or number of people surveyed. So even if neo-local residents seem to be existing in most of the people that we come across, he is giving the statistics based on the number of societies. I hope you understood. About 400 odd societies he had surveyed. Among those 400 odd societies, some may be smaller ones, some may be bigger ones. So if you take mainstream Chinese society, a huge one, mainstream Indian Hindu society, a huge one, but that count is only one there. If we are looking in terms of numbers of families, it may be a different picture altogether. So patri locality is the more prevalent locality rule, followed by matri locality, then you have the other ones. Where the couple stays after marriage. Am I allowed to go? Don't make too many decorations. Let me go. Emma, Bangaram. Em peru Bangaram peru. Neo-local, patri-local, matri-local, bi-local, and avunculocal. These are, don't make mistakes with the spelling, avunculocal. We'll pick up each one of them. So whenever such kind of a question is asked, locality rules, you're defining the locality rule, you say that these are various varieties that are found and that is the basic statistics that are available. When it comes to patri locality, as per the definition, after the marriage, the couple stays with or near. After the marriage, the couple stays with or near the groom's parents. Patri locality is the couple stays with or near the groom's parents. There are innumerable numbers, but I thought some entertaining names. Tiv of Nigeria, Nupe of Western Africa, most of the Indian tribes, and Pueblo Viejo of Latin America, Central America rather. See, there can be different combinations. In Indian society, Indian Hindu society for that matter, or Islamic society, conventional Christian society, we feel that these are patri-local, coupled with patriarchal and patrilineal. So there's no confusion. He is the powerhouse. And you get small installments of power whenever you require. Even if a female is earning, you have to deposit with the powerhouse, and whenever you need some kind of. There's one survey that was released. The table I will share with you in the context of feminist movements and how they have impacted Indian society. Somehow Indian feminist movements have not been so very vocal when compared to the Western world, but the impact has been rampant. Many times, such kind of developments, they make a lot of noise, but impact may be very little. But Indian case, this is a silent revolution that was happening. Unknowingly, the power changes hands at home and outside also. And interestingly, with the cries of powerlessness, they catch hold of the power. I said so much. So that table you see, to what extent decision making, this is a very typical feminist group giving the statistics. So they tell you what is the percentage of occasion you have the decision making power. Interesting things like what to cook on a daily basis, when to get groceries, what to get in the groceries, and then how much of and access to money when they require. Now, there are 7-8 such conditions, which nowhere did I see something more than 20% except grocery purchase. I actually wanted to have several other things like shopping for clothing, shopping for jewelry. I'm sure the percentage would be much higher, but that they did not give there. Once you see those numbers, you can easily understand that yes, patriarchy is in the operation. Matrilocality, the couple stays with or near the bride's parents. Sometimes what happens is a concept when we use the term, we feel that we know it. We feel that we know it, but properly in order to write in a sentence, it will be difficult. That is the reason why I am trying to repeat this. The couple stays with or near the bride's parents. Khasi. They are patrilineal, they are matrilineal and matrilocal. Matrilineal and matrilocal. So she decides how to spend money. She's in charge of several activities at home. If you could recall from what we have said yesterday, the instability in marriage is also linked to the type of locality. That's a general statement that is given. If it is a matrilocal residence, there is a higher risk of instability in marriage. But if we see the example of Khasi, we find the opposite of it. Not much of instability out there, in spite of the fact that there's a polyandrous society. More than polygyny, polyandry has many possibilities of instability in marriage. More than polygyny, polyandry has a lot of possibility of instability in marriage. But in a very traditional Khasi society, we don't find it, it's the other way around. You remember that AV you were watching, they talk about natural family planning and then the kind of cooperation they have. Maybe that where the tradition is strongly established, you are actually trained in how to manage more than one husband. These days, the parents are failing to teach the girl how to manage one single fellow. I'm serious when I said that. Avancu locality. We have come across this earlier. The couple stays with or near the maternal uncle. See, the problem now is between seven and 3 and 7 and 6. Suppose we take the society of Agni or Caroline Islands. It is not simply the residence that is shifting. One's sister's son is the legal heir of the man. So whatever properties you have, whatever inherited things you have, in a way the lineage flows through one's sister's son. So it is not simply that he is occupying the territory after marriage. So it's very problematic. See, all these years, number 7 was taking care of the livestock and everything of number 3. One fine day 6 gets married, like a wild card entry, he comes in there. 7 can't reject. But 6 comes and occupies the space, along with he becomes the inheritor. And it is not simply that. In Caroline Island in populations, if 3 dies, 6 will be having the authority, all the lineage, all the aspects, whether in terms of material, non-material aspects, they would belong to number 6, including the several wives of number 3. అలా చూడకు, ఎంత ఆనందపడాలి, ఓహో ఇలాంటిది కూడా ఉందా, చిచి అనద్దు దేన్ని కూడా. Things have got their own benefits and their own. So when you one fine day decided to marry your mother's brother's daughter, somebody on the other side of the globe also must have said chichi. It's as simple as when we have parallel cousin marriages. You have a big raised eyebrow. But it's okay. Understand that we are in an animal family. And similar to any other species, we are also a breeding group. Interestingly, we are all time ready with anybody. As long as you understand that, you shall not have any questions, no disturbance in the mind. Accept with an open mind. I especially wanted to talk about this in today's class. If your own father dies, you cannot have rights over your father's wives. Of course, one of them is your mother, you can keep her aside. But in this particular case, you are inheriting the wives of the maternal uncle. When so many privileges are being given to number 6, why not 7 be bothered, 7 be disturbed? There are jealousies between 6 and 7. I have given my life to the livestock of my father, you come and own them. Problem is not between you and me. Problem is now with my father. Agni is that society where there is a high incidence of patricide, killing of one's own father. Agni is also a society where you have this example of a competition between son and father. Something like this. A similar one we have seen somewhere else in Culture Personality School. You remember exchange of a daughter for a wife? You remember there was this practice, exchange of a daughter for a wife. So when she is born, you exchange so that you get one. Did we not speak of this anytime? The society of Arapesh is known for this. Similarly, we find a similar practice in Agni. Exchange of a daughter for a wife. Generally what we understand is exchange of a female, exchange of a female, maybe in terms of exchange of sisters. I give my sister to you in marriage and I take your sister in marriage. So if it is within the same generation, we don't have a problem. We accept it very well. But then here it is slightly different. This practice also seems to be existing in Agni. It shows a high animosity here. See, if both of you are competing, you are a senior fellow, you have established economics, and you can actually attract the female easily with all the riches that you have. And it is easy to win over her. Additionally, you have this card to play. So with the family you are negotiating. In fact, I was slightly reasonable when I am doing this, giving her to him and take this one. It can also be the other way around. If he is smart, he would say, why my son, I will take. You take my daughter, I take your daughter. And both these fellows are looking at each other. Abhi kya kare? Let us. Though that's not happening, but what can they do? The only option left out for them. In fact, in Arapesh, there is a high incidence of female infanticide. There's a high incidence of female infanticide because she sees an enemy in this girl. Because she is having a potential of bringing a co-wife. The daughter has a potential of bringing a co-wife to the mother. On exchange of this girl, he is able to get a wife. That was found in Arapesh. High incidence of female infanticide. Now you cannot ask question, are you a mother, kind of things. ठीक है. Every such trait has got its own limits and own boundaries. When we get used to reading such kind of a stuff, we will not question any news that we see in the newspapers that see somebody has killed their children. All these are the typical tendencies of animal characteristics. For your own survival, you can and you will do anything possible. What a culture or the social regulation mechanisms in the human society do is they try to curb such kind of tendencies. The kind of rules that we are coming up with, the formal establishments, in each of us there is an animal. The effectiveness of the controlling mechanisms actually is judged based on how it is able to control us. With more and more complexities coming up in the society, we find the necessity of having more complex, more stricter ways of dealing with the aberrations. Am I clear to you? No. Jeeva. Who? No.
In this type of rule, does the couple get to stay with only the uncle of the groom, or can they go with the uncle of the bride as well?
No.
Just the groom.
There's the groom. Avenue locality is the couple stays with one's maternal uncle. See, there are the other terms which we rarely come across called avenue potestality. Avenue potestality. What we mean is this man has the authority. In matriarchy, she decides. In patriarchy, he decides. In avenue potestality, he reigns. Are you following? In matriarchy, female has the authority, mother has the authority. In patriarchy, father has the authority. In the case of avenue potestality, it is the maternal uncle that has the decision-making power. Many times, avenue locality goes along with avenue potestality, though not a rule. Hanji sir. Which one? Yes, you can. Social value. Every time you need not be consulted. She will not come and tell you, see, I am going to kill my daughter, is it okay? You will kill her. You will kill her and replace her. Crime is a crime when it is done without informing others. If you are advertising that you are going to commit a crime, it doesn't remain a crime. I was saying something else. See, in the societies where patriarchy, patrilineal and patrilocality is existing, there is no confusion. Everything remains with the male, the senior most male fellow, whatever. This is no mirror image of matrilineal, matrilocality and matriarchy. The societies where matrilineal, matriarchy and matrilocality exists, they are not in any terms closer to patri-based societies. Though I don't want to make big statements and generalizations there, such as only a few genders can handle power, etc., though I made a statement already, these three things cannot go together, matriarchy, locality and lineage. Somewhere compromises automatically happen. In many of the matri-based societies, the power actually lies with the female's brother. In many matriarchal societies, the power is actually held by the female's brother. That's where you see the transformation, matriarchy taking the form of avenue potestality. This was actually seen in the Nair societies, where actually it is the female that has to be dominating. But slowly what happened was avenue potestality crept in. Because of several things. Maybe she has to fend for the children, etc., all other duties, and then he says, okay, I am there to help you out. And then she thought that, okay, he is going to help me, and slowly the power actually changes hands. Avenue potestality. There are certain other words. We have used this in the kinship behavior. In kinship behavior, the last two that I have added in that list, avunculate and amitate. If at all you have read the document, you can recall. Otherwise, you can see right away. In kinship behavior in that book, we had a look at acronymy, avoidance, etc. in yesterday's class. Towards the end of the kinship behavior, you have these two terms, avunculate and amitate. In avunculate, what you have written there is that it is the maternal uncle that has a higher role to play. So naturally, the kind of respect that you give to the maternal uncle is far greater than what you give to your own father. The same thing you can see in these people. See, when you are not going to give me the things for my lifetime, why should I give you, number one, the kind of respect? Maybe for me, 3 is much more respectable. Everything depends on the monetary returns that you are going to get. Here, amitate, the one that you have written is, it is the paternal aunt that decides. Paternal aunt has an important position in the society. But we don't have a term such as amitate, potentiality, things like that. We don't have such a term. But avuncu-potestality is a term that is there because the practice is found in several societies where maternal uncle decides. And this is a variant of matriarchy. I hope you are following what. We are actually dealing with several types of families. Within different types of families, one we are looking at, that is locality rules. These are nothing but the place where the couple inhabits after marriage.
Ma'am, in avenue locality, if at all there is no maternal uncle, what will be the position?
You have no position actually. You are at the mercy of, so it is something like this. You remember one of the reciprocity methods in Trobriand Islands, apart from the Kula-ring, we have mentioned something called Vasi system. In Vasi, we said that an individual has to give 3/4 of his earnings to his sister's husband, just in case the female has no brothers. The female has no brothers. Then husband gets help from nowhere. He has to take care by himself. So now your problem is she has no brother. Where will this fellow go? For temporarily I will remove her. Now, this is also a hypothetical situation. He might be having a sister. How much ever you have worked, he after marriage, now he will play the master role, you are the servant. When there is no option there, so in the Agni there is a practice that far off brother-like individuals can take up the responsibility, but that is not really possible. Unless otherwise you have the clear bloodline, people will not be interested in giving away their wealth. So it might be a subsidiary life that you would be having. బాగా ఇన్వాల్వ్ అవుతున్నట్టున్నారు. There are the other terms, yeah. There is this one called bilocality. Bilocality is the couple may stay either with the groom's parents or with the bride's parents, maybe based on the season, based on the economics, based on the occasion. Bilocality. You can stay there or you can stay here. So highly affluent families, only son and only daughter. You sometimes stay there, sometimes stay here. There is no competition. The female has no brothers who can stop her from staying with the parent. So such kind of alliances are actually alliances of purse rather than alliances of personalities. We were there somewhere. Bilocality, avunculocality. Yeah, based on marriage, these could be the family types. Monogamous families, polygamous families, or polyandrous families. The same kind of pictures that you draw for the marriage can be extended here. Anything that I have left in between? Neolocal. Neolocal, something like a nuclear family only. Me for you and you for me. Nobody else, middle. They establish their own new family. And we have seen in the Polynesian societies there is something called house building potlatch. You remember? House building potlatch, wherein the members of the society contribute whatever they can for establishing a new household for the couple. The only expectation is that in the future, any new couple establishes such a family, they should be helping them out. So based on the type of marriage, you can draw the same pictures there: monogamous, polygamous family, polyandrous families. So it is like, writing the same things from what you have done earlier. Same examples also, where monogamy is existing, polygamy, etc. I would want to spend good amount of time today on the descent. So based on descent, these are the types of families. They can be matrilineal families or patrilineal families, bilineal families. There are several others we are going to see in today's class once I start dealing with the topic of kinship. So in each of them, if it is a matrilineal family, the descent is matridescent. Individuals trace their ancestry through the maternal line. The second one, they trace through the paternal line. The third one, they trace the descent through both the lines. Both are important. We'll see how we draw them later. So it is like, same concepts you are taking from different chapters and trying to write the answer. Right now I'm not giving the pictures. Let us wait for a couple of more discussions. There is something else called based on blood relations also. They can be conjugal families or consanguineous families. Conjugal or affinal families. Conjugal or affinal families, consanguineous families. Its explanation looks to be slightly weird. For example, a brother and sister are staying together, a consanguineous family, two brothers staying together. Or the two nuclear families of a brother and sister, two brothers, the nuclear family staying together. We can consider them to be consanguineous families. Affinal family, suppose I am talking in terms of an individual living with some of the relatives of his wife. That may be an affinal family. It may not be with the immediate brother or sister of one's wife. So if I am writing that way, that is another variant of another, you actually see it as a consanguineous one from the perspective of the female. So when I am saying that this male fellow is actually living with some of the relatives of the female side, from his perspective, we can call it an affinal family. It becomes difficult to demarcate there the definition of consanguineous and conjugal or affinal family. From the perspective of the female, it becomes a consanguineous one. From the perspective of the male, it becomes an affinal one. So if we see that in the Chenchu male would feel more comfortable staying close to the wife's relatives. So from that male's perspective, it becomes an affinal or conjugal family. I hope you have understood.
Just a form of extended family.
Now you can say so. It's a kind of extended family where the rule that is prevailing maybe if it is an affinal or a blood tie. Sir, there are these couple of terms. I want you to have a clear idea about them, and then we will start with a discussion on kinship. First you understand the basic thing, then I will give you a note. Your syllabus gives these three terms: household, family and domestic group. See, in the case of family, I am sticking to the definition of Peter Murdoch, that you live under the same roof and you clearly are having some kind of a kinship relation, meaning that if a wife and a husband, a couple staying together with the children, whatever, they are after all kinsmen staying together. So in a family, what is happening? Kinsmen staying together with at least two of them having a marital or sexual relation with etc. etc. Common roof is one characteristic. Having some kind of a kinship relation is the other characteristic. And there could be other subsidiary or additional characteristics, whether you are sharing things, etc., etc. I hope this understanding of family is okay for you as of now, if at all we are taking up the definition of Peter Murdoch. Maybe you will be able to practically distinguish between who is a family, who is not a family. Suppose you have taken an apartment on rent along with one of your friends. Definitely you are not a family. The reason is that you are not related. There is neither an affinal relation nor a consanguineous relation. And hence you are something else other than family. And what is that, the kind of relationship that you have is actually decided, is actually defined by the other terms. What you are actually living in is a household. It is not a family. Meaning that you are sharing a space. You are living there for a purpose. Living there for a purpose on a temporary lines. Are you following? So what you live there is a household. You are sharing a house. You are sharing several things there. The relationship is definitely temporary. If it is a family, the relationship will be a permanent one. See, when it comes to the parental generation, the wife and husband, you can see the relationship possibly a temporary one. But the relationship between a parental generation and the filial generation, it is a permanent one. Come what happens to the relationship between the parental generation. So it is in that sense, the bonding between the wife and husband, between the father and the mother, may not be so very strong when compared to the bonding between a parent and the child. అదేం సినిమా? రేపు రిలీజ్ అవుతుంది కదా, సేమ్ హీరో, శతమానం భవతి, అదేనా సినిమా? కాదు, అది అయిపోయింది. ఆ సినిమాలో I don't know whether that movie or some other. The concept is that she had lived her life with the husband. And at one point of time, she declares to the husband that, see, now I would want to live with the children. This fellow gets disturbed. Thankfully, Prakash Raj gets disturbed in his old age. These days, among the young couples, the male fellow is getting disturbed very easily. Soon after the childbirth, your attention to me has reduced. You're not a child. You're not an infant who require the kind of attention which an infant might require. See, when I'm saying that the tolerance levels, accommodation levels have reduced drastically in the society, between the couple, this is also one disturbing element. When the tradition was strong, he could very well understand that the little fellow requires more attention. My desires, wants have to take a backseat at least temporarily. So a respect was there for the postpartum sex taboo. But the time has come when you are not able to wait even for that time. And you start looking here and there. And the rest of the things follow. Adultery and disturbances in the family. So somewhere, that kind of a line is getting blurred, and the strength in the relationships is getting weakened. You fail to understand that the one that is a newborn is actually the result of the strength that was there between you. And I actually appreciate certain medical professionals. Some of the hospitals like we have in Hyderabad, where it is now mandatory that the male fellow has to be there at the time of labor, in the labor room, with the so-called wife, so that he understands that, see, I am responsible for this pain, and I should also be a part of the whole thing. So this is, in a way, a kind of code they are bringing into practice. And it is also to communicate that, see, the born fellow there, you will also have to take a responsibility, and you should respect the kind of distance that you will have to maintain, though on a temporary lines. In yesterday's class, I wanted to bring it to that conclusion, but I did not, because I had to talk about this in today's class. So those are the two things, household and family. Domestic group is not definitely a family. It can be a family also, based on who is sharing the household. So in a way, if I could modify the definition, domestic group is a household with the kin members sharing the household. You have understood the difference? Domestic group is a variant of the household with the kinsmen being the partners. So if two cousins are staying together, technically they are kinsmen, but they are sharing the space based on a particular agreement that, see, both of us are preparing for the exam or some kind of an expense, both of us are staying in the same city, let us cut down on the expenses by staying together. Or there can be some kind of a purpose. For the fulfillment of the purpose, you are staying together. You are kinsmen, definitely not an immediate family or an extension of a nuclear family. We have shown you certain examples there. Extended family. Extended family is where it might be possible that two different nuclear families are staying together, sharing the space and other things. This can be given as an example of domestic group. Is that clear? If that clarity is there in the mind, you will be able to generate the answer. I repeat, family for which we generally depend on the definition of Peter Murdoch, the nuclear family, where several things are shared together, the same roof, and then you have a couple who are in marital relationship and who have children adopted or their own. Here there is no question of any reservations. Anything that is there within the family, it belongs to everyone. We are not trying to judge this based on certain recent developments. When it comes to the household, people living there, sharing the space, not having any kind of kinship ties, whether affinal or consanguineous. When it comes to the domestic group, it is a variant in the household where the parties are kinsmen. Clear? Domestic group
May or may not be a part of a final family.
is it a question or is a statement? What I said was domestic group may, when you say may or may not be an affinal whatever, suppose I am giving you the example of an extended family where the two nuclear families or two groups having some kind of a relation are staying together. It is not an immediate family. The distinction is that if it is an immediate family, it would cater to all those characteristics in the definition. If it is a domestic group, it is not an immediate family. It may be some kind of an extension for the nuclear family or members from two different nuclear families. Because you are related somewhere, you are trying to stay together. I don't know whether I answered your question or not. Some relationship should be there, whether it is a consanguineous or a final relation should be there. Yourself and your wife's brother, you are staying together. Whether she is alive or dead, or that's a different story, or she is staying with somebody else or somewhere else, kind of. Yourself and your wife's brother, you are staying together. There is a confirmed relationship there. You form not simply a household, but you form a domestic group. I hope it is clear. Now, take down the concepts of family, domestic group, and household. Concepts of family, domestic group, and households. Anthropological usages. Sir, those of you who have general studies, you have a class today in the afternoon? Okay. Right now. Anthropological usages of these terms have been ambiguous because each of these concepts may carry more than one meaning at a time. And the users of these terms hardly specify the context in which they are used. Occasionally, the three terms are viewed synonymously. Right in the next paragraph. Family, as generally defined by Peter Murdoch, refers to a social group characterized by common residence, economic cooperation, and reproduction. It includes the adults of both sexes, at least two of them maintaining a socially approved sexual relation having one or more children own or adopted. A household consists of people who, unlike a family, are not necessarily related, but live together, full stop. For Paul Bohannon, household is an arrangement based on residence and physical proximity, whereas family is based on kinship and marriage. Household is a group of people who live together and form a temporary relation for a mutual benefit. Right in the next paragraph. The concept of domestic group was explained in the discipline by, that is the name, Mayer-Fortes, F-O-R-T-S, by Mayer-Fortes. According to him, domestic group is essentially a householding and a housekeeping unit, organized to provide material and cultural resources needed to maintain and bring up its members. Continue writing there. The members in the domestic group by default are kinsmen, either linked through bloodline, or marriage. He considers the temporary nature of domestic group, as a potential commonality, with the household and a differentiating element with the family. A domestic group is a group of people related through marriage, siblingship, or filiation. Filiation is based on the parent and child link. Filiation, who concurrently form a residential, consumption, production, and resource holding unit. In anthropological writings, contemporarily, along with the type of families, types of domestic groups are also given importance. For Fortis, several types of families, such as extended families, can be conveniently called domestic groups. In contemporary functional school, domestic groups are seen as functional variants of family. That is a brief understanding of the three simple terms. Let us quickly start looking at some of the important aspects of kinship. That is syllabus in brief, types of descent, forms of descent groups, kinship terminologies. Sir, I have placed, I think, 3 topics in your Dropbox. One was complementary filiation. The other one was importance of kinship and how kinship's importance is changing as we are moving from simple to complex societies. Interestingly, there was one comment I was coming across. Every time in the process of evolution, we find that simple is moving towards the complex. But in the context of family and kinship, we see that the complex is moving towards the simple. It's as simple as, see, when you're all alone in your family, there is nothing actually. The complexity may be at the level of 0. But when one member gets added, somehow the human tendency is you don't find peace in being alone. Here is, at one place he says principles and types of dissent, at the other place he mentions forms of dissent groups. In fact, whatever is mentioned there, forms of dissent groups, in several of the textbooks these are mentioned as unilineal dissent groups. I repeat, sir, if at all you haven't paid attention, and if you see the syllabus document, kinship has 2 topics. One of them reads as principles and types of dissent. So, by dissent what we mean is how one generation is linked to the ancestral generation. One of the ways of how you are linked to the ancestral generation may be unilineage. Meaning that either you are a matrilineal society or you are a patrilineal society. That's the meaning of unilineage. Within unilineage, all these variants come, which he is actually mentioning as forms of dissent groups. He should have, I think, been much more kinder to the students in making it clearer. Principles or rules of dissent tell you whether you are having a unilineage, whether you are having a bilineage system, or you are having a double dissent system, etc., etc. Within unilineage itself, there can be several variants. That's what he mentions as forms of dissent. It can be a clan, it can be a lineage, it can be a matri, it can be a fratry. When these 4 terms are given, all these are the subcategories within unilineal dissent. I hope it is clear to you. Is that clear to you, sir? Please. Rain has stopped, don't worry. As we go into the details, you will understand it further. Once again, I am telling you, by dissent we mean how one is linked to one's ancestral generation. This linkage may be through maternal line, may be through paternal line, or may be through something else. Meaning that you may be following a single linearity, or it may be a variety of it. It's something like, suppose in some practices, in one generation I may be tracing my ancestry to maternal line, but my mother thought that she should be tracing her ancestry through the paternal line. So there is no one definite pattern. Across the generations, in one generation maybe one is following the matri line, and in the next generation somebody else is, the person is following the patri line. There is a confusion there. But that doesn't come under unilinear group. It is some other kind of a dissent. Within the unilinear groups, there can be different types of dissent groups. So, in the exam, when he says dissent groups, you are writing about things like what is a lineage, what is a clan, what is a fratry, etc. He can also ask the same as unilinear dissent groups. So, the question can be, write a note on dissent groups or write a note on unilinear dissent groups. There can be altogether other type of question where he might say, what is a dissent and what are the types of dissents, or what are the rules that are guiding the dissent. Are you following what I am saying? If that is clear, then I will take you forth. So those are some of the things in your syllabus. Sir, the topic of importance of kinship, even if it is not given in your syllabus, it has been asked, and hence I have added a note there. Complementary filiation also is added. I want you to go through that note and get back to me when we meet. Now let me say this. We will start with the meaning of kinship, what actually it means. It is not simply this. It is not simply that a feeling of relatedness, no. The relationship with the other person must have a basis. The basis can be through marriage or through the bloodline. That's the reason why whenever we define kinship, kinsmen can be of two types, kinship can be of two types. It can be through the bloodline or it can be through the marriage. Who is given more importance? Is it a final kinsman or the consanguineous kinsman? That may be a culture specific thing. It is all the family politics. Based on how you play the game, your importance is decided. I always fail to do this. One of my friends used to say, you'll have to follow at least one daily serial so that your life is happening. But I could not actually. Maybe I should start that exercise by choosing one across the spectrum. Generally, whichever book you open on kinship, they start with this. Kinship provides a continuity in the generations because it is an intergenerational thing, and it is also something that has a function of defining who comes to your rescue. That is the reason why when you are in a problem, you are not really upset when your friend doesn't attend you. You are really upset when your kinsmen are not there. They may not be of a great use on that occasion. When you are really unwell, you are in the ICU, a relative cannot really do anything other than just standing outside the ICU. But then you want the entire kin community to be there waiting for you outside, leaving away all their jobs and all their assignments. And you make a proper list of the people who are not there so that you settle scores. Occasionally things look very funny, but we are caught in all that web. As far as these topics are concerned, more than the utility for the exam, I think these are the topics that can help us have an assessment of our own personalities. Where are our expectations and how we are treating our own people and the others, whom we are giving importance. Now, let me take you straight away to the topic of dissent. So there are certain basic so when I say dissent is a mechanism of linking an individual with one's own ancestors. Dissent is linking an individual with one's own ancestors. They are broadly divided into two: unilateral or unilineal and cognatic dissent. Within unilineal, you have tracing one's ancestry through maternal line or paternal line, but not both. By restricting your lineage through one alone, you are already setting off the other in the importance. % of the societies across the world either matri or patrilineage. There are the others which we will be drawing and seeing. Some are double descent, some are called ambilineal descent. In some of the terms there is an ambiguity, because of which I thought the picture should communicate. Your answer for descent should be as such. So you define descent. It is a mechanism of linking an individual with one's own ancestors. So across the world there are different ways of conceiving one's relation with the ancestors, based on which there are different kinds that are mentioned. That can be broadly, we will stick to one small list. We would start with unilineal descent, within which you have matrilineal and patrilineal. So the broad terms that I would be discussing now, within unilineal descent, patrilineal descent, matrilineal descent, double descent, this is also called bilineal descent, the other one is ambilineal descent, there is the other one called parallel descent. Patrilineal, matrilineal, double or bilineal descent, ambilineal descent, and parallel descent. So once you list them, you pick up each one of them, you define, you give a flow chart, and then you will give examples, and if possible you will write the reasons for them. That is your structure of the answer. We would start with the first one, patrilineal descent. Patrilineal descent. You take the explanation of the rule, then we will draw the picture. So there are different names used for this. If at all you get confused, if any other name comes, especially agnatic descent. Agnate is male, male descent. An individual traces his or her ancestry. An individual traces his or her ancestry through paternal line alone. An individual traces his or her ancestry through paternal line alone. Meaning that, you write the next statement. Inheritance moves from father to the son and father to daughter, but in the case of the daughter, the succession ceases with her. The succession ceases with her. Based on your comfort, you can choose a method in the exam. You can either use the shadowing or maybe you can write the numbers as well. For the visibility sake, I am doing this here. I am trying to see the individuals in the patrilineage. So we are trying to trace the lineage of number 1. We said that from father it goes through the son, but with daughter it stops. This is a general mistake people make. The female also belongs to some kind of ancestry. Patrilineage doesn't mean that you leave away the daughter without ancestry. Where will she go? She also has to have some kind of an ancestral line. She traces her ancestry through the paternal line, but she cannot hand over the tradition further. That's where we say that with her it ceases. Suppose I am using the same picture for writing a lineage. Or maybe I will write the numbers 2, 4, 5, 12, 13, 21, 22. In the case of matrilineage, the male cannot further it into the next generation. With him, the lineage ceases. Is this fine, sir? If the pictures are fine, then you can scribble some examples. In fact, these two are very simple, clear. Problem will be with the rest of the ones. So, you take this small list of examples, patrilineage. In general, the mainstream Hindu, Islamic, Chinese society, classical Romans. Some other examples I have written there with an occasional mention of the persons who must have studied. Raymond Firth, Hammond. Kuch ho gaya? Some untoward incident? Yanomamos, Newer of Sudan, studied by Evans Pritchard, Leo of Kenya, Lambadas, Chinchus, Yanadis, and several others. These are the standard examples. You can have umpteen other numbers. If possible, in the Book of Ember, you can look for this one graphical representation in the topic of locality rules. In the topic of locality rules, he gives you a combination. Nature of warfare guiding locality rules. There's one graphical representation, you look for it in Ember. Meaning what type of warfare results in what kind of locality rule. Suppose the warfare is mostly external. External in the sense that, for example, there is an external enemy, an altogether different tribe is there with which you have a problem. If that is the case, you would have time to inform to your people and there is a sufficient time to assemble. Then people might really do not mind to be in the matrilocal residence, accepting the fact that it is only the men who fight. But if the warfare is largely internal, you don't have time for people to come and assemble. They need to be located at the same place. So it is generally a patrilocal residence. There are several other things that he gives in the graph there. You can look at them. And then we'll go to the next one, matrilineage. There are a few other examples. Matrilineage. So it is the individual tracing ancestry only through the maternal line, and the sons do not contribute to the lineage. Ashanti of Ghana, studied by Mayor Fortis. Khasi, Nair Society by Kathleen Gough. There are a few other: Red Indians, Cherokee Indians, Iroquois Indians. Trobrianders are matrilineal plus patrilocal. Similarly, Trunk, studied by Goodenow, matrilineal plus patrilocality. Those are the two. Matrilineal and patrilocality, that is a rarity actually. Generally, wherever the lineage is, you try to be located in that lineage. So it is very much understandable when I say Nair are matrilineal, they are also matrilocal, and mostly they are matriarchal also. You have the Khasi, where there is a high combination of these three elements: matrilocality, authority, and lineage. So remember Trobriand and Trunk clearly that this is a rare combination of matrilineal and patrilocality. So the ones that I have written towards the end there, Bemba, Ashanti, Yao, and then Trunk, there's a repetition there, Trunk and Ashanti. These tribes that I have mentioned separately, these are the ones that are seen to be moving from matrilineal to patrilineal. The four names that I have given towards the end. See, sometimes certain changes take decades of time. These are the ones that we have noticed ever since anthropology started reporting. The earliest reports, we found them to be matrilineal dominated. Now we see them that they are moving towards patrilineal. It may not be that the entire community or in one fine meeting they would decide that, see, we have had enough of time with matrilineal, let us move to patrilineal. It may not be that way. But then a gradual preference towards one, like how from joint family we have slowly moved on into nuclear family. And when the structure of the families are changing, you have the other things coming up. Unmarried cohabitation, single parent families, parent with adopted children, or a single fellow want to stay by himself, or maybe a family based on homosexuality. So these are the newer variants coming up. So you would understand the trend after a while. This is also something like that. Sir, in the write-up, in the topic of family, I have asked you to read one, that is changes coming up in the Indian joint family system. Sir, if you are answering such kind of questions, you will be answering it in two ways from the two fronts. One is the structural change, the other is the functional change. If at all you have read that article, I tried to give two components there. One is the structural change, the other is the functional change. In the case of family, the structure defines the function as well. So the picture that is given to you there is joint family moving towards the nuclear family. When I say structure, I am trying to show who are all the members there. But in your exam, you can continue that picture. From nuclear, you try to show the other variants such as unmarried cohabitation. We are trying to show in this way these days. So you are moving from that picture of joint family to nuclear family to unmarried cohabitation. There is also a possibility that another variant is coming where divorced individuals are staying by themselves, or there is also a possibility of divorced people establishing their own other families, or there is also a possibility that we have crossed this stage now. After unmarried cohabitation, separation, and maybe perhaps living with their own children. So I share the burden. I take one child, you take the other child. And then some people wise enough thinking that why unnecessarily getting into all that, let me be this way. Or some of them like a lady, I can have my own life with maybe some kind of an adopted child. All these are the trends that will have to be incorporated there. I hope you have understood. The traditional textbooks must have stopped at nuclear family. But after that, so much has happened. And when sociologists are coming up with particular symbols, like, for an unmarried cohabitation, there is something like that. With the things changing across us, around us, we are forced to recognize it and give it a position in the discipline. So, what I have written here is, unmarried cohabitation could be one that must have resulted to a disturbance there and a divorce-like thing is happening. And after that, you are sharing the spoils of war, and here there is a divorce and then people living by themselves. After divorce, maybe you would want to get married to somebody else, and a few people thought that why getting into marriage, we can be better off single. And after some time, no, I need some support, so I say some kind of a companionship, I am getting or borrowing or adopting children. This whole thing should be a part of it. Now coming back there. So this is what I was trying to make a mention. These are the communities where we find things changing from matri to patri. You can, I'm so sorry for leaving that. If I am writing only one gender, you may get upset. I have also added this small time article, anthropological view of the gay marriages. That is also added in your Dropbox. Even if you haven't done the other ones, this you read. And then let us move on to the other ones. These pictures are very, very important, sir. I'll start with this. Bilineal or double descent. For religious purposes, you might be going through paternal line, and maybe for economic purposes through maternal line. So there should be a clear demarcation. Note writing we will be doing in your next class. Let me finish off with the pictures. Sir, I have written here this diamond symbol with shading there. This is to indicate that this is a neutral gender, or we call it the ego. Don't mistake when I say neutral gender. This is basically an ego. Whether it is male or female, irrespective of that, when we are trying to indicate it. Even in the kinship terminologies, we use such kind of a symbol. I'll draw the other one. We'll do the writing later. The same picture we are using. Here what might happen is, from generation to generation there might be a variation in the descent an individual might trace through. Meaning, suppose I am considering this man, he thought that he would go through paternal line. But he had earlier traced his ancestry through maternal line. You cannot influence what he must be doing. You should be depending on the route through which he must have traveled. You can only decide after this. You can only decide after this, meaning you are here, you can decide whether I should go through paternal line or through maternal line. But what must have happened earlier is the prerogative of these individuals. So similarly, if at all I say that this man thought that I should go through maternal line, who had traced her origin, her descent through paternal line, and who had done this way. There is no one clear pattern. Generally in the band level societies this is found, where there is a problem with the basic living. And we also find this kind of a descent in bilocal residential patterns also. Bilocality in the band level societies was that for some time I may choose to be with my mother's side, for some time I may choose to be staying with the paternal relatives. Interestingly, bilocal residence is also seen in the bilineal descent. Bilocal descent is also found in the communities where there is a bilineal descent, meaning both the communities, both the lineages, you are giving importance based on the particular idea in question. And here, so you can actually so possibly couple of lectures I would share the recording with you, which might be of these topics, so that I don't spend my time in the class. An extension of these I can do that way, and preferably I would want to start off your next lecture with the tribal anthropology. And 2 short lectures, maybe we will try to have a recording and share that with you. Ji sir. This is parallel descent. No confusion. Females trace their ancestry through the female line, males trace their ancestry to the male line. Whatever she earns will be hers, and whatever he earns will be his. There might be a competition between male and female. How much you are giving to your child, how much I am giving to my fellow. This can be seen in the societies where male and female are actually treated on par with each other. You may raise that question with regard to bilineal or double descent. Though you are tracing ancestry from both the lines, they may not be equally important. Some aspects that are worthless you might be tracing through maternal line. Not really significant in terms of social importance or in terms of economic importance. There were discourses such as why one society might choose to be matrilineal or patrilineal or whatever. a general feature we find is based on the contribution of particular gender, lineage might be decided. Based on the contribution of the member, lineage might be decided. If male is contributing more, it is quite possible that the lineage and maybe perhaps authority also goes with them. It comes very much into a confirmation when we look at societies such as the band level societies. When we say that you can try to be on matrilocality or patrilocality based on whoever is contributing more to you, and they also tend to be having matri and patrilineages operating together. Or based on the convenience, whoever is giving you more, you are trying to trace your descent through them. So one of the significant factors of deciding the lineage could be the contribution one makes to the economic subsistence. So we see that very clearly, especially in the West African tribes, some of the West African tribes where parallel descent is existing. Both of them have a good say in the economics. And the respectful position one gives to each of the genders. Everything said and done, there seems to be a movement towards patri-based societies, even if several of them were formerly matri-based. This, Ember says, could be because of the globalizing tendency. We have seen in some of the tribal communities that were actually having polyandry, moving towards monogamous marriages, and even where some of the communities were having polygyny, they were also moving towards the monogamous marriages. And the communities that were having, say, bilocality or matrilocality, they were moving towards patrilocality and eventually moving to neolocality. So there are certain broader trends that are identified, and these trends somewhere are related to some kind of uniform culture that is emerging globally. Maybe because of the similar kind of Western rule that several parts of the world have experienced, because of which they had an impact on the kind of political and legal systems they started to have. So the impact is not simply at the level of economics, the impact is also at the level of social institutions. On that note, I leave you. So let us see in your first lecture, after this brief break, we would be meeting you. Sir, I am trying to complete as soon as possible whatever scripts that you have given to me. If at all some of you have been kept waiting, don't really misunderstand me. I am trying to do my best there. I am thankfully there, reaching about 86% in your scripts and assignments. So don't stop writing, saying that, see, हमने कभी लिखा था, दूसरे जन्म में आपने अभी तक नहीं देखा. But then I am trying to. So don't give up writing. Have a good time. Finish your planner as well. 65 types of family, concepts of domestic group, household and family, locality rules, definition of kinship, and descent groups.